back in my car again, in the light this time. So I was thinking, what do I want to talk about this week? Because, as I say, with nearly 30 years in IT and other stuff before then, it's always very difficult to kind of think, what can I think about? And going back to the early days, shall we say, or my early days, I should say, not the early days, because IT was going on long before I was ever even out of school. But I was trying to think, and I thought, let's talk about testing, because there's numerous kind of stories where I've worked in testing, of different types of testing. Let me just move my elbow a bit there. But one in particular that I want to, some testing I did back in the day where testing was like writing on paper a physical script that you used to run through. But I wanted to talk about one particular thing only because it's kind of the importance of testing. And to be fairly honest, if you do it correctly these days with all the process and, things like agile programming, all that kind of stuff in place, it kind of testing is all part of that, all part of the development process. But going back to the middle of the 2000s, so probably close on 20 years ago now this was, the company I worked for decided to release a new version of a product that they already had out there. And this new version, it was written in C#, because the previous one had been written in C++, or Visual C++. And also it's because there were these things that were being put online that this tool would then connect to eventually. So they wrote this new product in C# from the ground up in C# and released it. Now, I can't say what testing went on in the product itself because I wasn't a part of the group that wrote this product. All I can say is after release, the issues that were there, and there were really basic issues, should we say, some of them, such as issues with writing to the database, or the data writing to the database, I should say. But it was so bad, and there were so many support calls, and they were virtually the same support issue, that every other development team in a rota got roped into 2 weeks of supporting this product. So I did my 2 weeks, and as I say, from those 2 weeks I saw that the issues that were coming in were virtually the same one every single time, or near enough the same ones every single time. There were a few different ones that came up. It wasn't just one major bug. There was a few in there, but it kind of really just talks to everybody about how important testing is and what can happen if you don't test correctly. It kind of drummed it into my head that testing is important, and as I say, with a modern development, you tend to have unit test and various like the release testing, all that kind of stuff built in, automated, like you test, J test, or I can't remember half of them because there's so many there. And I know as part of the build pipeline, quite often, at least in one of the companies I work for, when you were trying to even move from sort of develop to UAT, or even from your local to develop, it would run those tests. Not only would it go and get the test that or pass correctly, but it would also have test coverage. So if you made a change, for example, in the code in an existing either adding a new method or existing methods, if quite often you'd have to add another unit test to the automated testing, because there was a test coverage as well, because you had to cover, I can't remember the exact metrics, but it was about 90% of the code coverage had to be tested. So if you made a change and there was say you had an if branch, for example, and you added a new branch of the if, so a new else if or whatever. So add a new flow within that method, you would have to write a test even to cover that. So that meant that whenever a product was built and released, it's thoroughly tested, automated, tested, test coverage guaranteed. You know, it basically it's not like human error testing. It's like automated testing that you know has a correct result. So it's very important to do that, because especially when you write a product that's full of bugs, it can cause quite a bad tarnish on your image, and it did on this particular company at the time. So yeah, I worked in a company that released a product that was quite buggy, and at the time we all had to spend a bit of time supporting, and it taught me the importance of testing. Now, that it's not just the one company. I've had products that have got bugs in it. It's just this one particular one that stuck in my mind. That did. But there you go. It's all fixed now. In fact, the company is a lot bigger and more major than it used to be when I worked for them. So they've grown and grown from that. They never caused them a problem. But there you go. Testing is important. Remember to test thoroughly all your code. Make sure there's no bugs, or if there is, not those that are going to cause damage to data and your reputation. Right, that's it for this week. I will see you all next week. Bye for now.